I've never spoken after a prime minister or a US ambassador, so it kind of brings new meaning to the phrase, tough act to follow. But I'm so delighted to be here. My name is Marie Paoli. I live in San Francisco, and I'm here this morning to tell you a few stories. Stories of entrepreneurs, and specifically fintech entrepreneurs, and the way that I believe they're uniquely positioned to have a positive and exponential impact on the economies in which they operate. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work with thousands of founders from across the globe, and I've witnessed how, as many of them build successful ventures, they've also played meaningful roles in the development and success of their home ecosystems. And so my goal today, as you all prepare to dive into 2 full days of programming and networking and thought leadership on some of the most important topics facing the sector today, is to paint a picture of what's possible, to bring the transformative power of fintech to life through stories of how it's already taking shape around the globe. But first, a little bit about my own story and what brought me to the stage this morning. I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is in the southwestern United States. I'm guessing most of you have never been there. And I had the opportunity, after attending university at George Washington in DC, to serve under President Obama at the US Department of State, where I supported exchange programs that brought together professional leaders from around the world, many of them entrepreneurs and many of them in the financial sector. My work doing this at the US Department of State led me to join the planning committee for the 2016 Global Entrepreneurship Summit. You'll see the little light bulb right here. That took place at Stanford University in California and brought together about 700 entrepreneurs from around the world, 300 investors, to share best practices and learn from one another. But when I found myself in what I sometimes think of as the radioactive waters of Silicon Valley, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to dive deeper into the mix of it all. I wanted to understand more deeply what entrepreneurs really need to grow and succeed at scale. And so I left government and headed out west. I joined a founder accelerator called Blackbox as director of partnerships and programs. And during my time there, we worked with over 400 founding teams and CEOs from 60 countries to really help them scale their own leadership and their own vision as their companies began to grow rapidly. And today, I'm the founder of a boutique global consultancy called Prismatic. I work with startups, corporates, and other ecosystem players to think about how they can build products and initiatives that resonate on a global scale. Now, why we are all here today is to talk about fintech. And this is an incredibly broad sector with a very long history. So technology has played an important role in the financial sector since the very beginning. But as we see the explosive growth of the internet economy take place, that growth is so inextricably linked to the right financial infrastructure being in place. We've all seen how developments in fintech are lowering the barrier to access to market. They are challenging legacy systems and business models, and they are rapidly enabling new ways of acquiring, understanding, and serving customers. When we think about some of the largest business trends, the most important business trends today, most of them would be just simply impossible without innovations in fintech, from banking to payments to software and analytics for small and medium-sized businesses, lending, personal finance management, and beyond. The numbers follow. There was over $35 billion in venture funding that went towards fintech deals in 2018 alone. The payments industry by itself is worth $1.9 trillion with a T. And the most important, I think, indicator of where the sector stands today is that it was recognized by Merriam-Webster last year as an official word in the English language. So as we examine the evolution, the growth, and the possibilities of what this space has to offer, where I'd like to focus today is on this idea of entrepreneur-led ecosystem development. It's really a pretty simple idea. It's a way of looking at economic development that places entrepreneurs themselves front and center as sources of innovation, mentorship, knowledge networks, inspiration, and even financing. Now, I'm focusing on this because it's something that I know a little bit about. I love talking about it, and also because I believe that this approach is essential to the holistic development of any tech ecosystem. And so my hope is that whether you're an entrepreneur yourself, you're an investor, a policymaker, or someone else who's an important stakeholder in the development of the Serbian fintech sector, that I can offer you some information or some inspiration into how to support it here. So, isn't this beautiful? Silicon Valley really epitomizes this idea of entrepreneur-led ecosystem growth. This is a timeline map that was created by a terrific organization called Endeavor that shows how Fairchild Semiconductor, employee spin-offs, right? So employees going on to found other companies of Fairchild Semiconductor between 1959 and 1971 literally created the computer chip industry that laid the foundation for what the Bay Area and really the global tech landscape is today. A more recent and probably more relevant example to why we're all here is what is sometimes referred to as the PayPal Mafia. These are some of the founders and the core team members of that company who have gone on to found companies like LinkedIn, Palantir, SpaceX, Tesla, and Yelp. They have founded some of the world's most prestigious venture companies and funded companies like Facebook, Lyft, Uber, Stripe, Pinterest, and more. Basically just about every unicorn that Silicon Valley has produced in the last 2 decades. If you look at some of the most prominent fintech companies out of Silicon Valley today, you have Stripe, which is now valued at over $22.5 billion, that's providing economic infrastructure for internet businesses in over 120 countries. Affirm is a consumer credit startup, more like scale-up at this point, that is challenging the traditional online checkout experience by offering merchants the ability to provide their customers with flexible payment options. Plaid, one of the biggest players in fintech, yet lesser known, is providing a technology layer for financial services, enabling applications to link users' bank accounts with a unified banking API. And a relative newcomer, and one of my favorite new companies on the scene is Brex, a 2-year-old startup that is providing corporate credit cards to startups with 0 personal guarantee from founders. This is obviously a huge deal for early stage companies. But let's be real, most of the growth in the fintech sector actually is happening outside of Silicon Valley. In fact, Ant Financial, or Alipay, raised more than 35% of all venture funding for fintech solutions in 2018. They're now the largest provider of mobile payments on the planet. Amsterdam-based Adyen is tapping into the global trend of omni-channel shopping, allowing merchants to process payments in-store, online, and through mobile. And mobile lending startup Branch International just raised $170 million, one of the largest rounds ever to an Africa-focused startup to help increase access to financial products and services in emerging markets. And in Brazil, where over 60 million people do not have a checking account, digital bank and credit card issuer Nubank is transforming the way that consumers manage their money. So a lot of things have to go right for a company to even hope to kind of play on the level of some of these players that I've just mentioned. Entrepreneurs need access to capital, they need access to market, to talent, they need access to the right infrastructure. not to mention business-friendly regulatory environments, and I think most of all, a very healthy dose of luck. But if we look at the examples of Fairchild and PayPal and so many others, I think it's so important that we don't underestimate the importance of the right mindset and the right culture in terms of how we see sectors flourish and economies develop. If we view entrepreneurs as architects not just of solutions, but of entire ecosystems, and we invest in them from that approach, everyone is better off in the long run. So I want to bring it back down to earth a little bit for a few moments. I have 5 snapshots that I'd like to share with you of earlier stage fintech startups from around the world that I've personally worked with and how they're already starting to have a positive impact on their home economies. So Sebastian here in the blue sweater, looking very happy. He's one of the co-founders of a company called Increase, based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This photo was taken just after he and his team won Google Demo Day for the Americas. Now, in Argentina, tech startups like Increase are accomplishing something that the government and traditional financial institutions have largely failed to do, which is to provide real and effective solutions for merchants to better control their businesses and understand their cash flow. In Latin America and in many parts of the world, merchants process payments and receive income from a variety of sources. So when it comes to credit card companies, whether it's Visa or MasterCard or Amex, all of these companies have different payout dates and charge different fees and show you transaction data in different formats. This results in a lot of confusion, a lack of visibility, a lack of transparency for merchants, and especially when you're just trying to kind of make your bottom line, that type of instability can be deadly. So Increase provides a digital dashboard that aggregates all of that data and helps merchants to really visualize their cash flow status. They have already been serving over 25,000 B2B clients. Over 70% of them are small businesses. And just to give you a sense of kind of the scale of what a company even like this, that's just several years old, is accomplishing, they're processing about 1% of the national GDP of Argentina every month. Things are going well for them. They've just raised a $3 million Series A, and they're beginning to expand to serve merchants in other parts of Latin America. How many of you are coffee drinkers? I am definitely a coffee drinker, especially when I'm 9 hours ahead of my normal time zone. Well, did you know that if you are a coffee drinker in Mongolia, that you are 17 times more likely to pay back a loan on time? It's interesting. Probably because you just wake up in the morning. This is one of thousands of consumer behavior insights that Bayar here in the upper left-hand corner and his team at And Global process through a machine learning algorithm to determine an applicant's creditworthiness and issue them a microloan in under 5 minutes through their platform. In Mongolia and in many emerging markets where there are significant gaps in the traditional lending infrastructure, consumers and small businesses are forced to pursue loans that can be predatory or informal. Bayar and his co-founders actually started And Global after just getting overwhelmed with the number of personal loan requests that they would get from friends and family when they needed to get a business off the ground or they needed to put a kid through school or had an unexpected emergency come up. So they're processing about $10 million now in 70,000 loans a month, and they have almost a 99% repayment rate. And yet, they're still facing extremely frustrating regulatory limitations in Mongolia. This means that with the $15 million in outside capital they've raised from investors in Singapore and Japan, they're now starting to look to expand in other parts of Asia, which is exciting, but still so much left to be untapped in Mongolia in their home market. Lupina is based in Madrid and is one of Europe's most dynamic and exciting female founders. Her company, Fintonic, is not just a wildly popular personal finance app, personal finance management app, that allows its users to track and analyze their spending and saving. It's built one of the most robust loan and insurance marketplaces in Europe. It's secured one-of-a-kind partnerships with global online retailers like Amazon, offering its users 0% interest on purchases. And it can offer up to a $40,000 or 40,000 euro loan in under 3 minutes through the technology that it's built, which is obviously quite significant, even in a developed market like Spain. So they've raised 51 million. They have over 700,000 active users. And now, riding on that wave of success, they have expanded beyond Spain into Chile, Mexico, where they're among some of the first finance apps to land there. Africa, one of the world, it actually is the world's fastest growing cashless market. Shai here and his co-founder built a company called Howler, which is leading the way when it comes to event experiences. So in Africa, where there are often unreliable networks to process payments, Howler has reduced transaction times to 3 seconds. It's network and weather independent. It takes out, it removes a lot of the fraud and security risks that have to do with on-site cash payments, and has processed more than $80 million in transactions since it started. One of my favorite stats from them is on this past New Year's Eve, they were simultaneously running over 80 different events in 6 different countries, all in one night, using their platform. And so they've issued over 1 million tickets in the past year. And Tony here launched South Korea's first cryptocurrency exchange in 2013. He really had a mission to give South Koreans access to the global cryptocurrency market, but to do so in a way that felt more mainstream and legitimate. So Corbett was among the first South Korean companies to actually secure a formal banking partnership that enabled traders to deposit and withdraw Korean won. They were acquired in 2017 by a Japanese gaming company for over $80 million. They're now Korea's largest Bitcoin and Ethereum exchange and among the top 15 exchanges globally. So I tell these stories because they really excite me. They excite me because they show a glimpse of what is possible. They show entrepreneurs who are creating real solutions to real problems and creating significant economic impact, even in environments where the obstacles in their way are many. They show us what's possible. But what did we think was possible 50 years ago, or 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago? How will Serbia and the Balkans leverage some of these existing solutions to drive the growth of the economy here? How will innovators here create solutions that have yet to be unlocked? And how will we not only benefit them, but support them? So you may have noticed that I didn't include any examples from Serbia or the region here, and that's because it's my first time here, and I'm not that familiar with the market. So I'd love to hear from you about the state of play in the fintech sector here. I'd love to hear your challenges, your success stories, and your ideas for the future. Thank you.